Hello and welcome. You're watching News 9 Live. My name is Pankaj Mishra. With me is my colleague and editor of News 9 Plus, Sandeep Unnithan. And we are discussing how China is unhappy, though, for Amit Shah's visit to Arunachal Pradesh. And needless to say, China has strongly objected to Home Minister Amit Shah's visit to Arunachal Pradesh, something that China can do as of now, as much it can do, declaring it a violation of Chinese territorial sovereignty. Look at how China places it. Last week itself, the Chinese government went so far as to rename certain parts of Arunachal Pradesh that it considers to be its own. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, has launched the Vibrant Villages program in Kibithu, a village situated along the India-China border. India has made it clear that Arunachal Pradesh is an integral part of the country, and China's attempts to rename the region will not alter this fact. Let's listen into what Home Minister had to say first.
आज पूरा देश निश्चिंत होकर सो रहा है, चाहे हमारी किसी भी सीमा हो, अरुणाचल का प्रदेश हो, लद्दाख का प्रदेश हो, कश्मीर हो या कोई भी प्रदेश हो, हम निश्चिंत होकर देश के मध्य भाग में, देश के उत्तरी भाग में सो रहे हैं। इसका कारण हमारे हिमवीर आईटीबीपी के जवान और हमारी थल सेना का पराक्रम और उनका त्याग और बलिदान है। उन्हीं के कारण कोई भी हमारी सीमा पर आंख उठाकर देख नहीं सकता। और आज हम गर्व के साथ कहते हैं, वो जमाने चले गए जब भारत की भूमि का कोई अतिक्रमण कर सकता था। सौ की सुई की नोक जितनी भूमि का भी अतिक्रमण कोई नहीं कर सकता, क्योंकि आईटीबीपी और भारतीय सेना यहां पर उपस्थित है।
Well, there you heard Home Minister clearly in no uncertain terms saying that Arunachal Pradesh obviously is an integral part of India and not even a single inch would be ceded to anyone. Sandeep, obviously, how mistaken is China right now here? Because the way China makes tall claims, obviously India has punctured that time and again. And secondly, there is no locus standi at all.
No, absolutely, Pankaj. And but you have to give it to the Chinese. They've been pretty much consistent on Arunachal Pradesh.
Right.
They've been saying the same thing for years now. You know, they don't recognize Arunachal Pradesh, this residents of Arunachal Pradesh to be Indian nationals. You know, there was that famous case a few years back when there was an armed forces officer who was from Arunachal Pradesh visiting China on a military tour, and he said they said he doesn't need a visa because he's, you know, one of
already
us. He's from Arunachal Pradesh. So that's what their stand has been in the last couple of years. Of course, under Xi Jinping, they've taken a far more strident stand in terms of building border villages, what they call xiaokangs, right? In the last decade, 600 such villages have literally mushroomed up along the line of actual control.
Right.
And what you're seeing today, what Home Minister Amit Shah actually went to Kibithu for, is India's pushback against the Chinese border village strategy. So it's very simple. You know what the border areas are like. We share nearly 4,000 kilometers of disputed frontiers, the line of actual control, India and China. A lot of these places run through some of the most desolate places on earth. They're very, very sparsely populated. And there was that famous comment, you remember, in the Indian Parliament over 60 years back when someone said that, oh, why are we fighting over these areas? Nobody lives there. That's what Prime Minister Nehru said, that these places are inhabited. Why are we fighting over it? So a very famous politician stood up and said, Prime Minister, my head is bald. You say that it's of no use to anyone. So, I mean, coming from there to what we are seeing today is a very significant pushback from India's side. Now, if China has started building up border villages, India has pushed back. We've announced our model villages program along the border.
And 662 villages, by the way, that's in the first phase that India is planning, and out of which 455 fall in Arunachal Pradesh. Sandeep, I mean, the analogy that you gave, the example that you gave, obviously, it's a stark reminder. Had we started earlier, had we got that head start, do you believe situation would have been different today?
Oh, absolutely. The situation would have been completely different. And, let's look at the last 60 years or so, because,
Right.
I mean, when you're talking India and China, it's always in decades, if not centuries, right?
Absolutely.
Now, it so began that after this 1962 war, there was a very defeatist attitude on the Indian side. And this has been said in no uncertain terms by the former defense minister in the UPA regime, Defense Minister Antony, where he said, unfortunately, after the 1962 war, the thinking on our side is we must not develop the border areas. We must not build bridges, roads, any infrastructure, because the fear was that the Chinese would use that infrastructure to come and invade India.
Well,
So
that's
this was a
defeatist, yes.
very perverse kind of attitude that the governments of those days had, right until very recently, more than a decade ago, when a conscious decision was made to start building up border infrastructure, which is the roads and the bridges.
Right.
And under this government, what the pushback that you mentioned, the 600 plus model villages that we have now planned to build on our side, they've put money in the budget. So there's something like nearly 5,000 crore have been earmarked in the budget of 2022-23 for border villages, exclusively developing border villages on our side.
Right.
And like 50% of that sum is going to be reserved for building roads.
Roads, accessibility.
Accessibility to those border villages.
Right.
The story is very well known. You have 19 border districts that have been identified, which are being depopulated over the years.
Absolutely, the ghost towns.
They've become ghost towns, ghost villages. We've had our reporters visit some of these. That's playing on screen there.
Right.
These have just, that village that you see had something like a population of 250 a century ago.
Right.
It's now down to some 25 households and shrinking because you don't have any facilities. You don't have healthcare, you don't have education, you don't have employment, all of this. And that's the reason that you have entire families migrating out of those villages, going towards the plains, settling down there. No one lives there. It's just, ghost towns. And this works to China's advantage, because what China is doing, it's like a game of chess, right? They keep coming up, and that you see is a Chinese model village, identical homes, very neatly laid out and all of that. That reinforces their claim on the border areas.
Right.
And there have been very important voices in the government who were in the opposition a few years back. I remember speaking to one of them where he said that, look, what do we tell our people in the border regions where there's no roads, there's no education, no healthcare facilities, there's no mobile connectivity. They say that when they switch on their mobile phones in border areas, the signal that you get is Chinese networks. That's how badly developed this entire area was. And now, fortunately, this pushback has begun. And like you said, I mean, we should have done this a long time ago. But for that very defeatist attitude that we had, we just let the border villages be.
Right. And Sandeep, also just for the benefit of our viewers, the discretion between developing an urban or a rural area within the either the central or the internal parts of the country, than as compared to developing these villages on the border areas strategically, it has got a lot of importance also from the security point of view. Elaborate, to our viewers on that.
That's very simply answered. Like, look, what China, they've come out with a border policy, incidentally, last year, where they've called these villages dual purpose villages, where civilians are going to be resettled along the border. And in times of war and conflict, they will be used by the military as well. They will help the military as well. So these villages would be like the eyes and ears of the Chinese Communist Party. They would actually house soldiers. In fact, some of our top military experts believe that these villages are already being used to house Chinese Communist Party officials and soldiers even, right? Because there's no reason for a lot of people to be in the areas where those villages have come up on the Chinese side. So it's a clear and present threat to our border regions.
Right. Also, Sandeep, talking about the topography, do you believe that India and China, on both sides of the border, obviously, it's a challenge, but given the kind of advances that China is making, do you believe India's this effort that we see just now from the Home Minister would pay its dividends in the times to come?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever. But let's not forget, Pankaj, that the Chinese have a natural advantage. They're building on the plateau, right? A lot of the villages that you see are on the plateaus or just off the plateaus. Whereas in our case, we're building on literally on the mountains and in ridges, and which is why we have
difficult terrain for India.
It's a very difficult terrain, and that's another reason why it's so tough to build roads over there. But I mean, hats off to this government for the kind of efforts that they've done to push border infrastructure, especially in vulnerable areas like in Arunachal and Ladakh. And that's something that's, they've not taken the foot off. The infrastructure development has been on full steam ahead.
All right. Sandeep, always a pleasure to speak to you. And nonetheless, this crucial aspect, what Amit Shah, the Home Minister, is doing right now in Arunachal Pradesh as we speak, obviously goes down into history books, not just for one reason, for populating the border areas, but also keeping India safe and also placing eyes and ears there, something that now ghost villages are something that India, this particular government, doesn't want to have anymore. Thanks for watching News 9 Live. More news and updates continue here.